if you look close, you'll see that there are 11 non-quarterback rushing attempts for the Eagles in this game. And that's even despite having a 21-point lead with still 3 quarters to play. Maybe add a little bit more perspective to that. The Cowboys were more committed to running the football than the Eagles were, even despite being down 21 points. A negative game script, and the Cowboys were more aggressive. They were more physical. They controlled the line of scrimmage better. They attacked up front first, more than the Eagles did. 2.2 yards per carry. I'm not saying that guys are turning on Jalen. I know that was reported. I don't know that to be true. I'm not going to speculate on that front. But what the film tells me, what their approach to the 21-point lead told me, what their comments after the game told me, is that they are far more broken than anything has been reported so far this season. If I told you the Eagles exposed themselves, and I got 2 pieces of evidence to strongly suggest that that is the case, then you probably wouldn't believe me, especially considering I got a star on my chest and a cowboy hat on my head. But of course, I'm going to tell you anyway. Before we get there, it's actually 2 very important checkpoints. Okay, one for you, the other for me. For you guys, do your part, please, if you can. Hit the like button. That way this 85,000 strong and counting community of sports below the surface truthers can continue to grow and expand. Okay? For me, my job is to make sure that we get a mic check and an extra mic check.
All right,
making sure that we're all right with the audio. You see, I got played by my toddler earlier when I spent 33 minutes recording take number 1. I usually try to do these in one take anyways. I don't have time to make the perfect delivery, okay? Can't really see him. Might be able to see his head. Number 3 is right here with me as we speak. So that just says all that needs to be said about I got to be efficient with my time these days, or at least try to be, right? So 33 minutes go by, take number 1 of this here project. This is, of course, take 2. And right as I get to I got the file downloaded, getting ready to upload and export, and I realized that there was no audio file to accompany, no MP4 to accompany the video file. And that is because some tiny little toddler fingers stumbled their way upon the mute button. And this guy right here got a little too big or too quick for his britches, once again, trying to be efficient. And I failed to walk step by step through all of my pre-show, pre-stream checkpoints. So we're going to fail forward and make sure that take number 2 is even better than take number 1 was to begin with. All right, make something good out of it. There's always a silver lining somewhere. I firmly believe that. 2 pieces of evidence to strongly suggest that they exposed themselves. Let's talk about it. Most of you, there's going to be a good majority of you that click on this video because I'm speaking and projecting directly to a completely separate fan base. You have no idea who I am or what I'm about. And it's okay to have trust issues. And I would actually encourage you to don't just take what I say for gospel. Maybe use it as motivation to go and do your own research and due diligence and figure it out for yourself. Am I the crazy one? Once again, there's 85,000 and counting right now. The reason why I'm here that can vouch for me when I say that if I say something, there's I believe passionately and strongly in it. And there's a lot of due diligence, homework, film study, Q&A, research, all that goes into me formulating my opinions before I once again creatively convey them to you. So that's always objective number 1. And okay, I don't just sprint to the microphone or just shock jock my way through this stuff. I take it very, very seriously. I take my reputation very seriously. I work hard to build the reputation that I currently have. And so that's not lost on me. I don't take that lightly whatsoever. Just recently, a pioneer in the Cowboys space, one of the GOATs, Vach Lombardi, mentioned something that Saquon Barkley was, for lack of a better term, disinterested in pass protection. So, of course, me hearing him say that, I got no reason not to trust Vach. Obviously, I do. He's earned that. He don't just say to spray either. So I sprinted to do my own due diligence off of his recommendation and go see if I could see what he saw when he came to that conclusion about Saquon and pass pro making business decisions. I'll be honest, I couldn't wait to come in and roast Saquon Barkley. I was looking forward to it. Would have got a lot of clicks. Cowboys fan exposes Saquon Barkley. I could see it now. But I wanted to make sure I truly believed deep down and felt what he was suggesting, because I don't want to be recklessly speculative and I don't want to just say and spray, shock jock my way through this like mainstream media does. That's not what this is. That's not why I'm here. All right. So I didn't find conclusive evidence to back in the games that I followed, that I looked through in recent weeks of the Eagles, to present anything inflammatory or as an indictment against Saquon Barkley and his pass protection. So therefore, I didn't report on it. I didn't creatively convey that because that wasn't my truth. And from that sample size that I observed, I didn't find it. So it is what it is. Move on. But then, of course, you see that game on Sunday and you see Saquon Barkley let Quinnen Williams know a little bit about pass protection. Quinnen's probably still feeling that today. Probably worse than he did in that moment. That second, third day soreness is a real thing. So where this all ties in, and there's recent projects, by the way, very recent, of me having uncomfortable conversations about Dak Prescott and Brian Schottenheimer. There's mountains of evidence, not really this year, because as we've reported and projected and have seen play out, the way that this organization is currently operating is verifiably different. We were tracking all the little things, but then now the big things have happened since then. Okay. So verifiably, they're operating differently. But prior to this year, I had plenty of reasons to be loud about the ineptitude or the priorities of what we used to know as the country club Cowboys, placing marketing before they place winning. Marketing and pockets before they place winning. It's a little different now. Okay, but point being, if something needs to be said, I say it. And what I think Eagles fans need to be honest with themselves about is the team that you used to be, the team that is currently still the reigning defending Super Bowl champions until further notice, right? You are the champs, and you expect to make some noise and go on a run and threaten a repeat. But what I'm here to tell you is that there are some very, very, very strong signs suggesting that that is not going to happen. And Eagles fans right now, I know it's one loss in the division, took their record from 8-2 to 8-3, no harm, no foul. You still fully expect to win the division, which, as you probably should. You fully expect to make the playoffs, which obviously you win the division. That's what you do. And then you also fully expect, like I said, to enter the playoff picture and go on a run. So why is it that the Philadelphia Eagles, with all the talent that they have, $200+ million of allocated dead money on their books, more than any other team in the National Football League? You could argue that there is no team more talented than Philadelphia. It's based on contracts and then obviously the recent history. Their record and their rings speak for themselves. An organization that absolutely places winning above all else. And nobody does it more aggressively with the way that they go out and acquire talent than Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. They have been the standard for finding loopholes, exploiting those salary cap related loopholes, and building a borderline dynastic roster. The Eagles' foundation, who they are to their core with this current roster, is ball control, defense, league's best offensive line, arguably, and almost inarguably the league's best offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland. Got a $50 million quarterback who wins right here because of his unwavering focus, toughness, and unshakable nature, right? That's that Nick Saban and Jalen Hurts. Okay? A quarterback who his superpower is taking care of the football and extending drives by making plays happen with his legs. Being accurate down the field when it's blocked up, of course. But this is a ball control defense, take care of the football, and junkyard dog fight their way out of every single matchup. That's who they've been. 2,000 yards from their tailback last year. And I get it again. This sample size that we're referencing here, no Hall of Fame right tackle Lane Johnson. There's enough evidence to suggest that the splits with and without Lane Johnson, recently, historically, for the Eagles, pretty substantial. Right? Different. When you're missing a Hall of Famer, yeah, you're going to operate a little bit differently. That's fair. Okay, but I was told. Scared you. I was told. Getting a little animated over here, Bubba don't like that too much. That the Cowboys, with or without Lane Johnson, they don't stack up with this defending Super Bowl champion Eagles roster. Ain't about that life. Okay, so the ball control, 2,000-yard tailback, smart quarterback who's also an extra hat in the run game, arguably the league's best offensive line with almost inarguably the league's number one offensive line coach. If there's ever a time to lean on that identity, the Philadelphia Eagles, it's when you sprint to a 21-0 lead with still 3 quarters of football left to play. But they couldn't do it. I'm going to show you something right here. Saquon Barkley. Oh, brother. Don't go anywhere. So what we're going to do right here is take a look at this box score for a second. All right, and the signals should have maybe gone off. We should have at the very least, been double checking, double digging, a little bit of extra due diligence on why their run game in week 1 was so ineffective. If every team since then, essentially up until week 10, the bye week for the Cowboys, completely exposed and embarrassed the Cowboys defense. But of course, comes into play when you've got divisional opponent that you're familiar with, entire offseason to put a game plan together, so on and so forth. So maybe that's why. But then you take a look again, and I understand that the way that you attack this Cowboys defense, especially now that Quinnen Williams is in the picture, the number one run stopper in football, go after that secondary. I respect that game plan. And it was largely successful in the early goings of the game until some adjustments were made from Matt Eberflus and company. All right, but what people also aren't really being totally honest with is that the best team won that game, right? The best team spotted the other team 21 points, gave them the football inside their own territory after going for it on fourth down before they had even seen the Eagles' opening script yet. So the Eagles have their perfectly scripted sequence of plays that's best suited not only to lean into their strengths, but to attack the Cowboys' weaknesses, which is, of course, their pass defense for right now. Still getting some guys reacclimated into the mix, and the young guns look to be gunning. Okay, but when you give a team with their opening script the football inside your own territory, and then you fumble, and then you rough the punter, and then you throw an interception because you had a procedural penalty when it was second and goal from the 1 or third and goal from the 1, and now all of a sudden it's third and goal from the 6, you beat yourself. Defense didn't have time to make adjustments after the opening script because you kept leaving the Cowboys themselves kept shooting themselves in the foot, which in turn left the Eagles on the field. They pretty much possessed the football for the entire first quarter. But the Cowboys didn't have a chance to adjust yet. But once they had a chance to make that adjustment, once the Cowboys quit turning it over, that was it. No more points for the remainder of the game. Saquon Barkley, this box score right here, if you look close, you'll see that there are 11 non-quarterback rushing attempts for the Eagles in this game. And that's even despite having a 21-point lead with still 3 quarters to play. Maybe add a little bit more perspective to that. The Cowboys were more committed to running the football than the Eagles were, even despite being down 21 points. A negative game script, and the Cowboys were more aggressive. They were more physical. They controlled the line of scrimmage better. They attacked up front first more than the Eagles did. Saquon Barkley, 10 carries for 22 yards. 2.2 yards per carry. If I'm also not mistaken, 7 total carries from Jalen Hurts. I think that's close to, if not the most rushing attempts for him this season. So the Eagles were kind of a little bit desperate to get it going on the ground and try to, once again, sustain drives, keep the clock moving, establish some sort of success in the run game. But you can't do that. They didn't do that. They chose not to do that. Instead, with a 21-point lead, Jalen Hurts ended up throwing the football 40 times. 40. The season average is almost half that. So here's what I'm led to believe. Who the Eagles are constructed to be, who they have been, who we see and perceive them as, and who their fans, some of them are fed up with Petula. I don't know how honest they are with themselves, but the loudest ones online are still suggesting, even Vegas is suggesting, that they're the odds-on favorites to win the Super Bowl. I'm having a hard time figuring out how the odds-on favorites to win the Super Bowl are going to do so while averaging 2.2 yards per carry. Make no mistake, this Cowboys defensive front, and we're going to unpack why in just a second. For the second piece of evidence that strongly suggests that the Eagles, they expose themselves. This Cowboys defensive front is no joke to run against. Now, but if you can't do so, if there was ever a time to even if you're not a ground and pound team, you're still going to see more of a commitment to trying to get something going that way. when you have a 21-0 lead. 3 touchdowns. Even the most, just think about it, even the most lopsided matchups that you'll see in the NFL, you won't find a spread, the largest spread of any two teams matching up this season. I guarantee you it's not more than 16. The salary cap, I mean, it's leveled the playing field. So it's unpredictable. It's highly competitive. The parity of the NFL is incredible. I mean, it's why it's the valuation is what it is today. It's actually, as a matter of fact, that's why the Eagles themselves have set the standard, the precedent of leveraging the loophole of the salary cap, deferring dead money well into the future so that they can stack their roster and not have their accounting principles on their salary cap situation be reflected. A lot of this, the impact of the players that they're bringing in, the money that they have deferred to the future, credit card swipes, right? That's not going to be accounted for technically until 2029 or 2030. And right about that time is conveniently, and it's not convenient or a coincidence, it's calculated, when the NFL will be renegotiating their TV deals. And that salary cap skyrockets. Some are projecting a 30% jump in 1 year come 2030. So you know what that 30% jump is? That's, by the way, 30%, that's twice as much as any year-over-year jump that's ever happened in the salary cap era. It usually jumps on average around, 10% or so. $10 to $15 million every year. Next year, it's projected $311 million. Year after that, a little bit more. We can actually look it up. Look it up. Not that it truly matters, but just for the sake of the discussion here. Well, it's not giving me that. I'm not finding that projection quickly here, so we'll just move on past that point. But all that all that you got to know is what why like there. So listen, let me just show this to you as well. Okay, here's why they can't run the football, because Kevin Patullo is asking their offensive linemen to do things like this. Brett Coleman laid it out perfectly. There's no universe where the snap that you see, or where before the snap you see that your center has to back block Quinnen Williams all the way out of the loose three tech, and you still run GT counter, guard tackle counter anyways. Okay, so you'll watch right here. You see this. Hopefully I don't get a copyright strike for this one, so we'll just kind of slow it down and press pause. But you'll see where my cursor is highlighted right here. Quinnen Williams, okay? He's in that gap right there, occupying B gap in between the outside shoulder of the right guard and the inside shoulder of the right tackle. Okay. That's loose three that Brett's referring to. That's a three technique. Okay. We got Kenny Clark here lined up, head up over the nose. That's a true nose look right over the football. All right. But what they're asking this counterplay, okay? Cam Jurgens to get all the way over here, a gap and a half over to cut off one of the most disruptive defenders in the entire National Football League. It's a difficult ask for Tyler Steen right here at right guard, by the way. But it's impossible for the center to do that. So, granted, most NFL offenses, quarterbacks, they're given a couple different calls, and the best ones, like Dak Prescott, obviously have autonomy at the line of scrimmage. When they've seen enough football, they're granted that right to veto anything that the offensive coordinator calls. All right, but you should have at least a check. Okay, kill. Jalen doesn't like what he sees, which he shouldn't here. Somebody should be alerting that. Hey, I can't do my job here. This play's dead before it even starts. And watch what happens. Just no chance. Look at the get off. No chance. Quinnen Williams is contacting Saquon's jersey about the same time that the football is, with Jalen Hurts trying to put it in his belly. Okay? It's one thing to know, to have a game plan to try to exploit the Cowboys' weaknesses, right? That's one thing. It's another thing to abandon one particular area or dynamic of your offense if things just aren't going well. If you're unprepared, or you have a fluke injury or something occurs to where, okay, your game plan that you thought was going to work, really smart defensive coordinators and really hybridized and talented defenses are now changing their looks. They're deploying, they're deviating from their breaking tendency to try and beat you. That's the constant chess match that's always happening week to week. Okay, so you got to be ready to make adjustments. Sure. But this has been week over week. It's not new at all. Okay, so, and it would even be a little bit different if you had a superpower of one of the two areas, right? If you can lean on pass, like you're the Cowboys, and can throw against anybody you want, then that's one thing. It's hard to win games, though, being one-dimensional. But in this case, the Eagles, they look no-dimensional offensively. And at this point of the season, you're not overhauling anything. You're surviving and advancing. Like, trying to make it through, man. At this point, everybody's banged up. Landon Dickerson's been banged up a lot this season. Lane Johnson's out as we speak. Hall of Fame right tackle. A.J. Brown missed some time. But you are who you are at this point. There's a reason why training camp is as long as it is. It takes a long time to get everybody on one accord with who you think you are best suited to be. And the Eagles, the team that they have been, the team that they thought they were this year, and the team that their fans are still hoping that they can be, are no longer. They are not anymore. Because if there were ever a time, regardless of your game plan, regardless of what happened leading up until this point, regardless of turmoil from your star quarterback and your star receiver, if there's ever a time to lean into who you have been, who you would like to be, then it's against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday afternoon with a 21-point lead. And they couldn't even so much as muster 2.2 yards per carry with the guy that toted it for 2,000 last year. The guy that they won the Super Bowl off the back of. Red flag. They had no answers. Red flag. Now, the second one is even more of an indictment, in my opinion. Because sometimes you can be handicapped. For the first reason, you can be handicapped in some for some personnel reasons. Eagles fans would tell you they're handicapped with by their play caller. They might be right. You probably are right. You could be handicapped once again by like just a team that you don't match up well against. Or freak injury happens and all of a sudden it's like, boom, emergency situation, right? You got to pivot. There are at least reasons for struggles on a week-to-week basis. But there's no reason for Landon Dickerson to have no idea that the Cowboys had recently been deploying five-man fronts, and increasingly more so, week over week. It had been a trend. And it had been a trend, by the way, about 5 weeks ago. Very proud to say that we were amongst the first to start shedding light on it, alongside Will Skywalker-Steele and Okoye Media. I pulled both of those gentlemen right there. We had a pretty good conversation, and I broke it down and I creatively conveyed it. Hey, we've seen the Cowboys sprinkle this five-man front in for over the course of the first 6, 7 weeks, whatever it was. I think this was right around Washington week. That's when it kind of started to pop up more frequently. Okay. So we began discussing it. Why? Because if you're overmatched or undersized on the interior, it helps you. You get more meat, more bodies in the box on the line of scrimmage. Okay. Increase the numbers advantage. In theory, a five-man offensive line, which obviously offensive coordinators can add more receivers or tight ends to the mix that can insert, create extra gaps, right? So you can still be outnumbered and out-leveraged technically, but from just a generic, like, baseline level of football, okay? A five-man front accounts for an extra gap, so you got extra help at the point of attack, especially if you're undersized, right? Creates a lot of one-on-ones, more frequent one-on-ones. Because now you're even. It's 5-on-5 as opposed to 5-on-4. Okay, but what it also does, since more gaps are accounted for up front, it makes the life of the second level a little bit easier. They can trigger a little bit quicker because more gaps are accounted for. Okay, but especially when you add a guy, and by the way, part of that prediction when we began shedding line on it, it was on the five down front, the bear front, if you will. It was with Quinnen Williams and or Jeffrey Simmons in mind. They had been reportedly available on the market, right? So we start talking about, okay, this has been the Cowboys' most dire need for a very, very, very long time. Man, I would love to have Quinnen Williams. But Lando, how the heck can that work? We already got two other $20 million defensive tackles. Well, a five down front gets all three of those guys on the field at the same time. And it looks like that play that I showed you a minute ago. This right here. Three technique defensive tackles. In this case, Osa's off the field, but it's still Solomon Thomas, who's been incredibly productive this year as a result of Kenny and Osa eating most of the double teams, right? He was the rotational piece, not technically the starter. So he's fresh when he's coming in the game. And he's not getting double teamed. But now, the same effect that Solomon Thomas benefited from, now Osa and Kenny get to benefit from the existence and the presence of Quinnen Williams. Okay, but you got three really productive, really disruptive defensive tackles on the field, spelled by two of your three best edges. Okay, this is the Cowboys' best look, in my opinion, especially against the run. This look right here. You know the edge is getting set. Jadeveon Clowney and James Houston or Donovan Ezaraku, they will not let anybody get outflank them to the boundary. They will disrupt, but they will keep their outside shoulder free. And then it just goes without saying the impact of the other three men in the middle here, with or without Osa. Like, any combination of those four, any three of those four, and you're amongst the best, if not the best in the league. But we had began tracking that trend 5-6 weeks ago. Okay. But it had been deployed at a more significantly more, a much higher rate in recent weeks. So how is it that Landon Dickerson isn't prepared, is, quote, surprised? And here's his quote. I'll let you listen to it. How is it that Cowboys Nation knows more about the Cowboys defensive front deployments than the Eagles do? Take it away, Lando. Unmute.
Gave us a defense that they rarely.
In the past, obviously it's been a problem for a lot of the season. What are you seeing? What happened today?
Yeah, we went in. They gave us a defense that they rarely run, and we just didn't execute the game plan we had.
What was that defense?
Just 5 down fronts. It's not typically something they were running a whole lot, and it turns out that was their flavor of the day.
It's been their trending flavor of the month and a half. But especially with the addition of Quinnen Williams. Once again, their third $20+ million player along the defensive interior. Even if that wasn't their flavor for that 5 to 6 week buildup, increasingly so, especially against the Broncos, Cardinals, and Raiders, even if that wasn't the case, it would be wise, especially considering that was the talk of the town. That's all Cowboys fans were discussing prior to the Raiders matchup. More 5-man front, more 5-man front, more 5-man front. Because especially situationally, it gets you the opportunity to have your three best defensive linemen all on the field at the same time. Your three most highly compensated defensive linemen. Okay? So you should be expecting that that's the case more frequently. You should be prepared for that alternative or that reality. That, hey, the Cowboys kind of like to do this. There's a chance that they lean on that. If they do, here's our counter. Here's what we do. Why are you surprised by that if you're Landon Dickerson? And it's not even an indictment on him. Nobody on the Eagles offensive staff picked that out. Kevin Patullo didn't catch that on film. How did I, this couch coordinator here, with a camera and a microphone, I found it. I talked about it. Me? But Landon Dickerson and the Eagles offense are surprised? So it's what Landon Dickerson said. That's the second indictment of evidence, in my opinion, that the Eagles exposed themselves. Why weren't they prepared? Okay. But it's what he said, but it's also what Nick Sirianni didn't say to dispute or refute that statement from Landon. So it's almost a doubling down of admittance that, hey, we weren't prepared for that football game. We didn't do our due diligence. Cowboys Nation knows more than we do about the Cowboys defensive front, the deployments of such. Why is that? Either you overlooked this team and you arrogantly assumed that you could just rinse and repeat the game plan from week one, or you were underprepared with your offensive coaching staff, and as a result, your offensive line. Communicating, passing off stunts, right? It's a lot of more one-on-ones. And like I said, it makes life difficult. So you're underprepared, but then you also don't trust who you used to be. You can't lean on it, even for one game, for 3 quarters with a 21-point lead, when your opponent is handicapped to the point of only 3 teams in Cowboys history have ever surmounted a 21-point deficit. Like I said, further contextualize that. 3 touchdowns, even the most lopsided matchups on any given week between any 2 teams. I don't know what the largest spread discrepancy is this season, but I would be willing to bet it's not more than 16 points this year so far. The most lopsided matchups, rookie quarterback, 2-win team versus defending Super Bowl champ. You see a lot of 13.5 point spreads. That's not terribly uncommon, but that's still a full touchdown less than the hand the Cowboys were dealt, largely on behalf of their own doing. They made that bed. They laid in it for a little while, but they fought back and they didn't quit. They never quit, not even for a second. They didn't even think about it. The better team won that game. The better team, the second half of the season, probably isn't going to make the playoffs. Almost guaranteed not going to win the division. But they might. The Eagles got a lot of work to do. And it's a far cry from 8-3, it's only one game. Trust me on that. You got problems. We suspected that was the case, but now it's verified. You had the chance to lean on who you used to be, to get a rhythm when it's ample opportunity to lean into that physicality, run game, ball control. Stomp. Step on the throat of your opponent. Kick them while they're down. And make sure that you take the breath and the life out of them. You had your opportunity to do that. You couldn't do it. Didn't even think about it. You abandoned it before the game. That's one thing. But then when the unpredictable nature of football, when the Cowboys shooting themselves in the foot happens, you can't fall back on anything because your foundation is cracked. Who you have constructed your roster to be. Complementary football. Possess the football, play defense. They have projected to me and to any Eagles fan that's willing to be honest with themselves. They do not trust who they are designed to be anymore. They are no longer that. That's what it says to me. And I'm the guy who's sitting here admitting openly, like, the Cowboys they're probably not going to make the playoffs, and that's okay. You know, I was the first one to suggest, like, the reason why I was hammering home to the point of no return, so loud and adamant about screw the picks, man. Holding on, what does that do for you? Because by the time any of those 26 or 27 picks are ready, a year or two at least, to contribute. So a year or two from 2026 and 2027, you're at the end of your 4-year window with all these contracts that you've got lined up. Like, this is the window. It was very, very easy, very obvious to track and project what the Cowboys are doing. And if you missed my most recent project, that'll be linked here at the end of the video. I went out on a ledge a little bit, but I stood on it, and I looked the camera dead in the face when I said they're not done adding. And they're going to be aggressive in the offseason. Free agency or the trade deadline or otherwise. Otherwise meaning in the draft, trading up potentially to go and get their difference maker. The last thing that we'll finish with, this is the third problem. If you ask me, and maybe I'm looking a little too deep into it, but I don't think that I am. Go back and watch the play, 3rd and 2, got to have it situation. Games depending on it. The play where Osa Odighizuwa fights through Landon Dickerson and gets the sack on Jalen Hurts. That all but sealed the game. Go back and watch the effort of at least 2 Eagles offensive linemen. Watch them quit on the play while 4 other Cowboys rushers are getting after it. Watch only one guy, Jordan Mailata. Mailata, by the way, was one of the guys that quit on the play. Contributed to the sack. Okay. Stood there before Jalen got sacked, standing straight up, just, whatever. He at least had the decency to walk over to Jalen Hurts and pick him up. But he was the only one. And at least one Eagles fan or offensive lineman watched Jalen get sacked. That would be Lane Johnson's replacement. Instantly turned his back on him. Didn't even flinch. Didn't even take a half step towards Jalen to go help him up. Turn around and walk the other way. That said something to me. I'm not saying that guys are turning on Jalen. I know that was reported. I don't know that to be true. I'm not going to speculate on that front. But what the film tells me, what their approach to the 21-point lead told me, what their comments after the game told me, is that they are far more broken than anything has been reported so far this season on the offensive side of the football. And that's with the knowledge and the understanding of all the turmoil that has been announced that on behalf of A.J. Brown, publicly voicing his frustration. If you got me in fantasy, get rid of me. It's a crazy statement to say for a team that's now 8-3 with half of their fan base still delusionally expecting what happened last year to magically occur 3/4 of the way through the season and into the playoffs. If it happens, hey man, listen, I'll be the first one I'll backtrack everything that I just said last hour here. And I'll tip my cap. I may have no other choice but to take my cap off, stand up and clap for him. Because that would be quite the feat. The evidence is mounting. That game was a lot more than a disappointing loss, if you're an Eagles fan. I think that game was the cold, hard, unfortunate but objective truth rearing its ugly head and boldly stating that it's not going to get any better this year. Doesn't mean the dynasty has to end. All it takes is one coordinator that knows what he's doing. Ask the Cowboys with their run game coordination. Once again, Clayton Adams, the things that we forecasted. It can change overnight, man. It can. And if anybody knows that, it's Howie Roseman and the Eagles. They're all in too, in the same 4-year window, because they know what's coming at the end of the next 4 years here. 26, 27, 28, 29, as this TV deal comes to a close and the new one opens. And it's the wild, wild west of talent acquisition all over again. We're just talking about 2025. And to me, that says everything that we need to know about what's inevitable for this Eagles team. Probably going to win the division. Probably going to play in the playoffs. But where they want to be at the end, when it's all said and done, hoisting that Lombardi trophy for the second year in a row, long shot at best. That's all I got. Hope that you guys enjoyed this segment here. It went on a little bit longer than I would have liked for it to, but that's okay. I hope you enjoyed your time here. If you did, make sure you leave me a like. That's it. Just one task, one objective. Like the video so that the 85,000 and counting can continue to grow. And I'd really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. You guys know that. There is no me without you. Okay? Remember, prayer changes things and the war's already won. Talk to you guys soon.